Good evening. It is I, Ron Carr. It is my pleasure to be with you in this evening. There are so many things, changes going on at this time. Some of them are changes which undo other things. Some of them are changes which introduce new things into your society and into your life. But they are changes none the same. And it is an interesting phenomena that on the physical plane, while you often will say that you enjoy change, and you will often remark that you are bored by everything being the same day after day after day, especially as it has been during this time of the COVID virus, when you are staying in your houses more than you used to and not socializing as much as you used to. You have had little change, but everything changes in this world. Nothing stays the same. Not one of you was born the size you are today. You have all grown magnificently into the people that you are. You have also learned and changed. And your attitudes, once upon a time when you were a young adult, you may have felt that you knew many different things. You knew everything, and everything was obvious and clear. But you matured, you got older, you saw that things were not as simple, that life was far more complicated. And so you changed many of your attitudes. You changed many of your opinions. You're not the same person today that you were when you were 22. You are not the same person today that you were when you were 40, perhaps. Depending upon your age, you may have changed many different ways. And certainly for everyone who is attending on this call, there was a time when you would not have believed that you are actually sitting and listening to someone talk from spirit. You would have found it a most amusing thought that you would be even interested in doing something like this. But here you are. And hopefully you will have questions for me later, but let us continue to talk about this process of change. There's the process of growing on the physical level, and that is the easiest change, for it happens automatically. And actually, as you grow older and older and the changes take place in your body, you probably are not as happy to see some of these changes as they take place, and may even take actions to keep yourself healthier, to keep yourself more fit, to make sure that you eat a good diet. These are things you might not have cared too much about when you were young. You were fit, you were healthy. You didn't think about whether food was good for you. You just thought about what you liked, and you ate it, and you enjoyed it. But today, you may make different choices when it comes to eating. And this is a change for you also. The process of thinking and what you consider, the process by which you prioritize things in your life has changed you completely in many different ways. Most of you here on the line are women. And you know, if you had children, that there became a time when your children became a large priority in your life, because you were expected to care for these children. You were expected to guide them. You were expected to help educate them. There were many expectations on you as a woman, and you changed yourself from time period to time period as was necessary. Perhaps as your children left home, and now there was a time for you to work on a career or do other things for yourself. But you explored yourself in many different ways and probably became a new person in many different ways when you no longer had children in your home. And then, of course, after your children came along and perhaps they got married and you had grandchildren, and then things change again. Life continues to change. And when I was speaking about the priorities in your life, even the way you make decisions today has changed considerably because of your change in priorities. You have come to recognize things that at one time you may not have noticed, and now you feel that these things are important. Your society is always bringing up issues that people feel are important to discuss and attitudes which need to be changed. This, of course, is a matter of opinion. Uh, Sometimes it is helpful to make changes, and sometimes it is not helpful to make changes. And it is good to recognize when you need to make a change in your life and go in a different direction. Now, the reason for that can be pretty obvious if you think about it. When you begin to be unhappy with your life the way it is, that is a definite signal that you need to make changes in your life. If you cannot continue to be happy, then something is bothering you and you need to face up to this situation. And you need to make perhaps changes in your life. Change isn't always easy to accomplish, even when you want to make changes, because there are those habits. Habits are things that you do without even thinking. They have become wired into that bottom part of your brain so that you do not actively think about these things. And the easiest place for you to tell, perhaps, is first thing in the morning when you wake up. You probably have a morning routine, which may consist of brushing your teeth or washing your face or taking a shower, uh, using the toilet facilities for your body, um, having your coffee or making breakfast. These things you probably do in the same way every day. Now, if you decided to change them, you would have difficulty because you have been doing them the same way and they have become a habit. And you do not even think about your habit that you have in the morning. It is the way you efficiently get yourself ready for your day, whatever that may be for you. It is what is best for you. You have already adopted these things. And some of the habits that you have, of course, have been perhaps self destructive. If you smoke cigarettes, this is not to make you healthy, but it is a habit and it is an addiction. And if you want to stop it, it is very difficult to stop. But of course, you have the power to change yourself if you want to. There are many habits that we have, some of which are helpful and some of which are not. And so it is important for you to look at what you do in every day. And as I have already said, the best indicator if you need to make change is that you are unhappy in the moment. Now, many times the changes that happen around you may cause you unhappiness because it is not the way you want it to be anymore. And that causes you to have to adopt your perceptions and change your perceptions. If you have been judgmental of something and now suddenly it is the accepted thing and it is the way it is going to be, you will be continually unhappy because of the way things manifest. And you are causing your own unhappiness by that thought that this is not how it should be. And so as you change if you need to change that thought so that you can feel happy again, when you can accept changes that you do not like, by changing your perceptions and at least acknowledging that perhaps these changes are necessary or they are acceptable, or it really doesn't matter that it is changed, it will be just fine. These changes in your perceptions and your attitudes can allow you to become happy once again. And so tonight's lecture is just on change, but it is to discuss and bring to your mind these changes that can happen, which can both cause you happiness or unhappiness. And it is meant to empower you to know that you can change your attitudes, you can change yourself, you can change anything that you need to change so that you can be happy and successful in your lives. Are there any questions on what I've spoken of in this evening? And if there are no questions on the subject of change, feel free to ask any question that you would like an answer to.
Okay. I have been, well, thinking, I guess, or noticing that everybody I know has some kind of physical problem. Now, is it that we want to create physical problems? Are we here to create physical problems for ourselves? And is just changing our attitude or how we look at things going to help the physical problems?
Sometimes, of course, it does. Because if you change your attitudes and you take your doctor's recommendations for changing in action, sometimes that can get rid of that problem, whatever it is that you have been diagnosed with. I think what is going on the physical plane right now, where medicine is concerned, is that there has been a great deal of research into how the human body works, how the mind works, and this continuing research has brought a great deal of knowledge. And with the knowledge has come many judgments. So that things that were not considered difficulties or problems in the past now are problems. After all, 20, 30 years ago, who ever heard of something called pre-diabetes? But now that is a problem. And what does that mean? Well, it does not mean you are ill. It just means you are in a stage where you have a potential to be ill if you continue to live the lifestyle that you have been living. At least that is what they say and what they think. And of course, there are many people with pre-diabetes who will never develop diabetes. And so pre-diabetes isn't really an illness. But if your doctor tells you you have pre-diabetes, yes, pre-diabetes, it sounds like you are sick, but you are not. And of course, I do not know your age exactly, but you are no longer young. And if many of your friends and people around you have also aged with you, it is a part of the normal condition that the body slowly is not able to restore itself to full health as well as it used to when it was young, and was not able to cope with the various assaults that physical life puts on the body through perhaps poor nutrition or bad habits or many other things, and the body has difficulty sustaining itself after enough years. So when you are saying all your friends, you don't know too many people who are not ill.
I don't know anybody that doesn't have something wrong with them. This includes the young kids.
Yes, well, that is the way of medicine, is it not? That is what they are there for, to find what is wrong with you. And medicine and the ability to visit a physician when you are perhaps not feeling as well as you used to, or something has gone wrong, has led to the diagnosing of many more problems. There were um, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there were not as many problems with children. No one had ADHD. No one had um, other problems, behavioral type problems. Yes, some children had behavioral problems, but maybe they just had a lot of energy and had a hard time sitting still. And it was not tolerated, and they were told they had to sit still. And different attitudes with raising children has allowed what was once not was considered perfectly normal or not abnormal can now be diagnosed as being abnormal. So when you are speaking of these problems that children have, is it a real illness? Once upon a time, children tended to get childhood diseases, chickenpox, measles, German measles, mumps. Children no longer get these things, but society expects children to be sick, does it not? They have to have something. So now they can be hyperactive or hyper. I cannot even think of all those terms that they use for. They use many letters put together. And therefore, these are things that have been diagnosed as abnormal, but they have no idea what normal is. It is just something that someone has determined, because what's normal is a wide range of things and a wide different range of inabilities. And they try to establish what is best for everyone by through scientific processes, but it is still a rather arbitrary decision. And then they use this measuring line and say, well, this is not right. You are sick. You are obese. You have diabetes. You have high blood pressure. You have low blood pressure. You are, you have a fatigue disease. You have something else that is wrong with you. There is always something. It is because they diagnose it. And in the past, it was simply not labeled, or it was just something that was expected, that things happen as you age. Now you have Alzheimer's, but once upon a time, people only became rather forgetful.
Yes,
So
now they label everything.
you
But
are
that
correct.
doesn't mean that through the years, people are always physically hurting with something, whether it's even headaches or backaches or whatever's. I, I don't know. I mean, did we come here with the intention of hurting the body or going through these aches and pains? I mean, did we do this on purpose or what? Because everybody seems to have something.
Well, as I have said, they have come up with an arbitrary standard which is quite perfect. And if you are not perfect, you are sick. And I think you just need to look at it like that. You do not come into an incarnation to experience aches and pains. You come into an incarnation to make yourself, to create a life for yourself, which is happy for yourself and is productive and satisfying for yourself. That you have happiness. I'm sorry. You are happy in the life that you live, that you feel productive, that you are happy. And this is why you come in. And there may be some other karmic things that that you want to take care of. Like perhaps in another lifetime, you killed someone, we will say, or you neglected someone, or you did something that might be termed bad, and you want to change that. You want to be a more thoughtful person. You want to be more helpful or more kind. And so you choose to come in with the skills that might, and the attitudes that might impel you to be a doctor or a nurse or a teacher. In some way, you will be choosing your form of work that you will do and how you will serve society. Because let's face it, everyone, when they are working, serves society as a whole. They may be working specifically in a particular area and serving a person, in other words, their boss, doing what is expected of them, but they are also serving all of society, because that is how you become successful, by serving one another. And so that can bring a sense of self-fulfillment into your life, which can cause you to be happy. But the reason you came in was to design a perfect life and experience a perfect life in which you have this self-satisfaction, that you have helped others, that you feel happy in your life as you go along. It is the satisfaction in life has always been somewhat difficult to achieve, because people strive for more frequently, and they can cause themselves to be unhappy by striving to be better than they are at the moment, or not earning enough money, or not having enough friends, or not loving someone in particular. And of course, you have stressors in your life. People die at different times. Certainly, the virus has caused many people to deal with the issue of losing loved ones. And that may be part of your karma, how you get on after you have lost a loved one. But it is a process that's come about through change. At any rate, the reason, just to repeat, the reason you come into an incarnation is so you can create a perfect life, one in which you are happy, that you are healthy for the most part. If you choose to come in with a healthy body, you continue to be healthy. There are people who they choose to come in with disabilities because of the challenges those disabilities give to them, and also the special awareness that may come with those disabilities. But for the most part, you decide you are going to live a life that is filled with happiness and prosperity, self-satisfaction with your life, and expresses and uses your talents that you also choose to be with you.
Okay, those are all thoughts and emotions and thinking and doing, but that's not the physical body. What I don't understand. Did we make our bodies hurt for some odd reason? I just can't figure that. I mean, even if you're doing mentally what you want to do or whatever, people still wind up getting aches, pains, hurts. But are we creating those aches and pains and hurts, or is it just your body does this or whatever?
Well, it's a combination. Your body does it and you are creating it. You might try to be aware of some of the things that are going through your mind, and you are thinking constantly. And as you are thinking, you may be thinking good thoughts, you may be thinking guilty thoughts, you may be thinking unhappy thoughts, temporarily, at least for the moment. And your body, your subjective mind, your subconscious mind responds to these thoughts that are going through your conscious mind. Now, it is very possible that as you are thinking about something, the subconscious mind hears it, and it I don't want to use the term motivates you, but influences you to move in such a way or do something so that you trip and fall, you bump your elbow, you bump your head, you cause yourself damage. Illnesses are often in response to situations in your life in which you are having difficulty dealing with these situations or coming to decisions or taking actions. By coming up with an illness, this can cause you to deal with a situation or to avoid a situation that you don't want to deal with. So that in some ways, you actually do create your own illnesses, for they are often a reflection of what is going on in your life. You may have a thought that you are thinking, I can't manage to get this done. I don't understand. I have to do this and I can't get it done. I can't motivate myself, whatever. And the next thing you know, you bumped your knee, which can be very painful. And it's a symbol of what you just thought. You just thought that you were having difficulty moving and getting something done, and you bumped your knee, which made a physical expression of that thought. This happens frequently, and it is for you to be aware of what you were thinking just before you bumped your knee or your elbow or you crashed into something or you developed a headache. Where were you thinking about? Was it a tension headache? You were thinking about something which was causing you tension. You got a stomach ache because you were thinking about a situation that made you sick to your stomach, quite literally. It was something you did not like. You didn't want, you were forced to accept something into your life. That's like eating something you don't want and something that makes you sick. And so you come up with a stomach ache, or you come up with cramps or something like this. Things that you do in your life do have manifestations in your physical body. Things that you think and judgments that you make are often expressed within your physical body. Do you understand?
I think so. So we're all creating these messes all the time.
Frequently, yes, in little ways. Most of these things are trivial. I mean, how long does a bump knee hurt you? Well, a couple minutes, but you have things to do, and so you moved on and you just limped for a minute or two or three.
Right. But if somebody we'll say procrastinates with something and keeps procrastinating, so they're continually damaging the body.
They can manifest in illness because they are not dealing with a situation. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
And what is interesting is that sometimes by healing the illness, they are vicariously also healing that situation within themselves. And they may find that they have either forgotten about it because it was a perceptual difficulty that they were having, and so they have moved beyond it. The situation changed and no longer needs correction, and they didn't need to take action. Eventually, they didn't need to take action. These are things that do happen when you procrastinate.
Okay, sounds good. Alrighty.
It isn't always pleasant to experience, but it is what frequently happens when you come up with little illnesses. And then, of course, there are simply the cases that
none of this physical hurting or aching or whatever is pleasant. I just was trying to figure out, what am I doing?
It could be just that your body is not as young as it used to be. It's not as strong as it used to be. And as a result, you have more muscular aches and pains, and your joints ache, and The body is just not as healthy as it once was.
But that's no excuse for the younger people I know.
Frequently, you are correct, but frequently it does not matter if you are unhappy in your life. Do you understand? That's what
I'm
happens
getting
with
it.
younger people more often than not. There is something going on in their life that they are um, dealing with and or not dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it is being expressed as an illness.
Right.
But there are those situations which are karmic, where if it is a severe illness, perhaps such as leukemia or cancer when you are a young person, this is not an issue for these types of illnesses in young people. There are probably karmic issues for this that have to do with um, um, past lives.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there other questions?
Yes, I want to follow up a little bit on what you've said. For millions of people across the world now to have left within 1 year's time, there must be something similar in what they had intended, or their karmic influences, or something that caused their exit from this earth in a body within such a short span of time. What is it? Is there something? What are the similarities?
What you are looking at here with the COVID virus, which has been correctly labeled a pandemic because it has come out all across the world. Virtually every country has been affected, every landmass, and there are a few which have been remained slightly free, but not totally. This type of event has been common to the physical plane. And it can be a reflection of attitude of all the masses of the people on the earth. Do you understand? That this has developed at this time because of attitudes by huge numbers of people and governments that has just manifested an illness which has caused many, many deaths because it is an error in thinking. There are many errors in thinking at this time on the physical.
Give us an example of some of the attitudes that have caused this.
Well, you have recently, not too long ago, you have had among one sect of one of the religions, they proclaimed that they wish to eliminate all other religions. One whole country, as a matter of fact, was looking forward to a mass event that would so upset things that their savior person would, and their religion would then become to dominate. And that was those for the Muslim religion. These people created war in the Middle East by invading their neighbors, by killing masses of people because they didn't exactly believe the exact same type of religion. These people were not even causing conquering and death to people of other religions. They were killing off other people who believed in the same prophet, simply because they had different ways of looking at that person and believing slightly different things about them. This would be very similar to some of the wars that occurred in during the Protestant Reformation, where countries went to war with themselves, or there were all these different types of Christian religions who fought. They have over.
So how does that relate to COVID and those who have died of COVID this last year?
How does that relate?
Yes.
Yeah, see, when you have a large group of people who wish death and destruction for other people simply because they have a difference of opinion on someone's religion, that this is not an attitude that stimulates hatred and can bring about illness and death. It does not matter that it bears no religion, no relationship to the religions itself. It was the attitude that was going on. And you have multiple countries, China, North Korea, and also in the Muslim countries, Iran. You have among these people, Syria, there are a number of them which they still wish to conquer and kill other people and want to dominate. Now, these type of attitudes bring about illnesses. They bring about viruses. They bring about flu. They bring different things. And some of these may have been even deliberately man-made created, even though they do not appear to be so. It is possible that some of these were not deliberately man-made, but the attitudes and the thinking on these things also create illness. Even within your own country here of the United States, there is great animosity among peoples because of the division between those who think one way and those who think the other, basically between your Democrats and your Republicans. There has been a great outcry of cheating on your elections. People have been very unhappy for the last 4 years for the man who was president. And before that, there were people who was unhappy for the president. They could not accept other people's, the judgment under which their country was founded to create a leader in the country.
So why did the people
hostility?
Yes, I can understand that, how it just generally will create an atmosphere and vibrations of the individuals who died of COVID. How were they more susceptible to these kinds of attitudes and vibrations that permeated the world, really?
Certainly. I understand your question. I shall move on to that attitude, to that discussion. These people, many of them, you see, when you incarnate, there are certain things that are probable. The life that you live, because you have free will, can manifest very differently than what you might have planned to experience. But there are those things that are probable that they will manifest. And these individuals, perhaps those who left the earth plane, the physical plane, and moved into spirit, they could have either been people who deliberately chose to come into an incarnation during this time period, that there would be an exit ramp for them to leave. So this could be both desired by them, and it can be a different desire. We had a discussion a few weeks ago about people who have Alzheimer's and how that serves other people. And it is a similar situation. Everyone goes through transition. When you are in spirit, thinking of your own return to spirit is not a traumatic event. It is not something that is considered bad. It is natural. And so you may not care that you will exit the earth plane because there is a pandemic, and you will exit in the company of many other people. You will still be exiting. And so this does not play necessarily a part in your incarnation. That is about all that I can say, is because it is simply not a tragedy to die. It is part of your heritage.
Yes, yes, certainly I believe that. And some individuals have been able to go through the transition, laying their body aside without pain. Were there some of these individuals dying of COVID that had spirit either helping them or mentally were able to transcend bodily pain and fear? Or what Abraham Hicks says, before it gets as bad as your thoughts, of horror can think, the soul will leave. It never gets as bad as you think it can get. What was most of their condition, or maybe all of them? Did they die in horrendous fear? Did they die in pain, or did they easily transition with faith that they would continue living?
That is, it is different for every soul and every individual when they come to their time of death. There are some who are granted a swift transition, one moment alive and the next moment dead, due to whatever the cause. It could be a fatal automobile accident, it could be a sudden heart attack, it could be a stroke, where the physical body just stops at that instant. There are many times when it is very swift and very fast. And then most of the time it is something that takes longer, and people are aware of their declining health, and they are aware of the declining body, and they must, I'll use the word, suffer through that time, which may or may not be a case of suffering for those individuals, because it is all how they react to the situation. For those individuals who believe that there is life after death, there is the hope. They feel hope that it will be as they believe, for there is always that possibility. It is not the way they believe. That is what they worry. But they eventually shift their consciousness to a point of acceptance and are willing for the transition to take place when it takes place. It is not desirable for them to be in tremendous pain. But pain is one of those things, when you are on the physical world, that accompanies many things. You try to avoid pain as much as you can. However, while the pain is going on, there is not much you can do for it but to endure it. You have no choice. And would people be unhappy over that? Well, they will be in pain, and they will be just enduring is what they will be doing. And of course, in your society, there are ways of alleviating pain to a greater or lesser extent, depending upon the treatments and the beliefs of an individual. For there are those individuals who still will not choose to take strong painkillers to eliminate that aspect from their body, while others will. So it is a question of what each individual chooses at that time in their life and what is available to them. So some may suffer more than others, but there are others who slowly their bodies declined, and they become unconscious, and then they are no longer in pain. And then usually the departure is fairly swift when it happens. So it depends upon each individual. Those who are fighting for life often live. And those, of course, who are more accepting and maybe more willing to make a transition, do make that transition.
Were those who died more afraid, or were those who are watching them die more afraid? Who experienced more fear? Those of us who live, or the ones actually transitioning
I do not,
overall?
I do not know that those who are observing people dying have fear. They may not be happy over the situation, but I'm not sure that fear is the correct word to use in that way. I believe most of them experience great compassion because for their loved one who is dying, and they are probably relieved when the process is over and their person, their loved one, has departed the physical plane, and what's left is just the body. Of course, this is replaced by sorrow. So it is, that is probably not a question that can be answered because each death, circumstance of death, would have been different for each individual. And it may, many people depart when no one else is present so that they feel free to depart. There are
Thank you
those
so much.
individuals who have difficulty leaving when a loved one is near them. They feel they must stay alive in the body and they would prefer to be departing. And so as soon as their loved one leaves the room, they depart. It is very different for every person.
I guess most of these people did not have anyone but the nurses and the doctors able to be in their rooms. All right, well, thank you so much for your answers.
You're welcome. Are there other questions? Hopefully on a better subject.
Hi, this is Tanya. I have a question.
Yes. Thank you, Tanya.
I would love to know what Roncar, does Roncar evolve and grow from these meetings? Does Roncar learn from us? Does Roncar expand, or is Roncar always constant and never changing? Like, is there anything positive that Roncar gains from us in these conversations?
Well, I do gain from the service that I provide during these sessions. When you are in spirit, your awareness expands. And as we discussed at a different meeting, when you are newly arrived in spirit, your horizons are fairly small. Your awareness is much less, and it slowly grows. It is always difficult talking about spirit life because it is very difficult to explain a timeless change, since there is no time when you are in spirit. But there is an evolvement, in which you become more aware of knowledge, similar to what we just discussed with the medical knowledge that has expanded incredibly in the last 50 years. And this awareness, for me, I reached a point where my awareness and also with my personal lives that I have lived, where I needed more to serve in a different way than I did not choose to enter into a physical life at this time, but chose to be a source of information that could be um, explored by those on the physical plane. And so I found a suitable, I will say body. I found a suitable body which was able to, in which I was able to manipulate. She had been channeling for some time and had eventually reached an openness that I could use and take advantage of and be of service through her. So the medium has changed. I have not changed. And what I have by doing this service is it caused me to, in a sense, to grow. Because from time to time, you have all asked a question which required me to find more information for you so that I could explain things adequately. So in a sense, my understanding did also grow. I hope that is helpful or
Very
satisfies
much,
curiosity.
very much so. Thank you.
You are welcome. Are there other questions?
Roncor, it's Diana. It's kind of maybe more of a practical question. When you explained how the pandemic occurred because of these kind of violent, hateful attitudes, I mean, there's so many of us now on Earth that want to surpass that, good over evil. You know, I feel like we're moving toward goodness and truth, and but we're still kind of hanging, you know, we're still kind of contained by this virus, and I wanted to know how we can get vaccines. It's like there's no vaccine available, but those of us who want to live and want to live in joy and service, we don't want to go yet. So we want to be able to get the vaccine. How do we do it?
I cannot give you too many practical answers, but you must go to the things that you already know that you need to do.
Okay.
There are websites available around the area in which you live to start out locally and ask when they will have their clinics and when vaccines will be available. But you are all aware that there are limited amounts of vaccines. They are processing and producing them as fast as possible. And so it is important for you, if possible, to get on a waiting list. Some places take waiting lists, other places do not.
Mhm.
But if you make inquiries through as many resources as you can possibly do, you will probably find somewhere where you can put your name on a waiting list, and probably more than one place. And so my suggestion would be for you to put your name on as many waiting lists as possible as you could find in proximity to your home or wherever you are willing to travel, so that when you get the call, you can take advantage of it. It is going to take time, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Good advice.
Do find the waiting list.
Yes. Yes.
Are there other questions?
I had heard you say something about new spirits arriving into spirit. So do you mean like when a spirit is created, they first come to earth and then go into spirit?
No.
Okay. You said something about a new spirit coming into spirit, something like that.
Mm.
So are there like spirits being created all the time and then they just don't have much experience?
The in a sense, I can use a bit of a joke that has been used by many people. The creation of spirits is beyond my pay grade and my knowledge, so to speak, since I have been created just like you have been created. And the spiritual network of entities is vast. There are often things that people say on the physical plane about spirit, young spirits, new spirits coming in. What is not generally understood is that coming in as a spirit does not occur along a timeline similar to that which you experience on Earth. You may think that all the spirits were created at the same time, and perhaps they were, but not all of them incarnated into, well, I will say prehistoric situations when we were just forming the hominids before we had the full what we might call humans. So you might say they were pre-human people. They were your very, very ancient ancestors. It's not that you started out as one of them and then when you died and you came back again for your second life, you came into down the timeline and now you were a human and then you went out and, but you were a very unevolved, rudimentary human without many skills. And that you came along again and entered again. And this time you had better communication skills and maybe you had learned to make tools and you were in control of fire. And then you went to another incarnation and this time you have better tools. No, that's not the way it works.
Okay.
So you can change from whenever you came into to the physical for the first time. It is generally thought by people in the physical that you would choose a less complicated society than, say, the one that you live in at this time. And that is probably true. You would probably have chosen a simpler time, but it really would not matter what you chose. And sometimes you might move from, just as an explanation, from the living in the 1200s BC to living in 4000 AD. Whatever it is that you are seeking to experience and achieve, the time period is open for you to choose a life that you wish to live within with that situation. So sometimes it is like jumping from the future to the past, and sometimes it is from the past to the future of an incarnation. You cannot think of it that way. An incarnation is whatever the incarnation is, and you will be fully cognizant and able to function in that society, no matter how complicated, because functioning in that society is a matter of your education and within that society. So The children who come in today may not know how to use a dial telephone, but they certainly will know how to use a computer and all other types of communication devices that you did not even think about when you were a child. And at very young ages, they will be more aware of what their computer can do probably than you at your current age, even though you were there for the full development of computers. If you were not using them right from the beginning and interested, you probably have some difficulty with them now. And this is just a matter of your incarnation. And so it does not matter when it comes to new souls. It is not something we need to think about. But I agree that many people do talk about new souls incarnating. And but I do not choose to speak of that. I am not necessarily aware of continuing creation of new souls. There are plenty.
Okay, now from what you were explaining, that you can bounce around for different times and all that stuff, would it, how am I going to put this? Okay, say you only came here 5 times and somebody else came here 300 times. Would the person that came here 300 times be more knowledgeable, be more evolved, be more, I don't know, aware of what was going on rather than the one that was only here 5 times?
Well, I would say if someone was on their 300th incarnation, that they were a bit retarded. Or it would seem like they had not learned very much, unless they were coming in as rather exalted people with and were great communicators and were trying to help the planet evolve, but and become better than it was. They may have some lofty reasons for coming in to an incarnation. And as I have said, coming into physical is the one place that you have the opportunity to create. And the closest I can come to an analogy would be to think of the artist, whether it is a painter or a sculptor, an inventor, even a research scientist, whatever it is, that this is an incarnation is a tremendous time to and an opportunity to create. And each life is the possibility of being your masterpiece, in which you create that perfect life in which you are happy and that you improve society through your words and actions, and that you are kind and helpful and loving and prosperous in everything in your life. Your attitudes are very good. You may think of Mother Teresa, who lived in dedication to others. It was a masterpiece of a life well lived, that she could take the difficulties of her life in stride and not be unhappy with them. Perhaps she struggled from time to time, but she always came out on top. And there are so many individuals who have wonderful lives because they are kind and good and loving. They have wonderful amounts of family members and friends. They are successful in what they do. They contribute to their societies. They improve things. There are many people who have those kinds of lives, and perhaps you have even known some. And these people, they may decide not to come again, or they may decide to come again. But it's simply a different opportunity to use a different set of circumstances to once again create a masterpiece. And so that is really what coming into an incarnation is all about. Your chance, your opportunity to create a perfect life for yourself, and in so doing, enrich the lives of others.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there other questions? Well, there seem to be no other questions. Everyone is very quiet, and it's perhaps it is still early. There is still time for some questions if you want them. But if there are no more,
Yes, I have a question.
yes.
Um, with all the turmoil that's going on in our country right now and the divisiveness, do you feel that as a society, we there there's more probabilities now for us to become kinder, more compassionate, more mindful of one another, and more helpful to create a healthier and a society where the people have a better well-being. So I guess what I'm asking is, do you feel that there is an improvement coming to the quality of the society that we are living in, or will the turmoil and divisiveness continue for a while still before we see any improvement?
Well, there probably is going to continue to be some turmoil for quite some time yet, because while there are plenty of opportunities and there are many people who demonstrate through their actions and their words the kind of kindness and love and tolerance and understanding that leads to a better world, there are many people who, there are just as many and even more people who are not thinking in those terms. And when they are thinking in those terms, they are thinking, my way is the way to achieve that which we need to achieve. And you have to change to fit my way. Whereas in the past, there was more, while there was difficulties, you certainly had your wars, the world wars, the Korean War, Vietnam War. I mean, while there were wars, there was, in general, an attempt to live a more peaceful and to bring about a better life. It was the striving that was there. Unfortunately, some of the people who are in power at this time have determined that while they may have that goal, they are going to be like the strict father who does not tolerate any diversity within his, at his table, so to speak, among his children. You all must think like me. You all must do what I tell you to do, which usually does not result in the greatest harmony within a family, let alone within the world. And so there are just a few too many people who are thinking in this way, that I am the ruler and I know what's best, and everyone should come under my rule and follow my rules, and the world will be very happy when you follow my rules. And they each have different rules, so there is stress there. But between the dominant powers, so to speak. And there are, unfortunately, The world has once again devolved into having a number of power-hungry people in positions of importance, and not thinking of what is good for everyone, and not allowing other people to be. For is that not where true peace and prosperity lie? True peace and prosperity lies in acceptance of other people as they are, and respecting other people as they are, and knowing that differences are good. And if we allow your differences and value you for what's good about yourself, everyone is happy. Everyone is respected. Is that not what people want? To be respected in their lives and to be allowed to continue them. And if everyone respected everyone else, respected that sometimes our opinions are different, but that's okay. We can still get along because we can find the compromise. It has been a while since people have worked at the compromising. There have been too many people working at the dictatorship of deciding my way is best. And so we have not evolved any further than we did perhaps at the early 60s. And when many changes were taking place, and slowly there was improvement, and of late it has degenerated into not improvements. People are making more hostility, more enemies of the people that they find are different from themselves. They may be just choosing to be less tolerant of different things than they used to be. I hope that has, I know it has probably not uplifted you, but it is the correct answer as best that I can give it. There is always opportunity to bring about more love in the world and more peace and more harmony. And it is always done by creating it yourself in your own world. And then you at least will be happy and healthy and in harmony in your world. And slowly that will again come back and people will change. But we haven't had enough disharmony yet for other people to say, this is madness. We need to change.
So do you feel that it's going to get worse before we see any improvement?
To make a judgment such as that, to say is it going to be worse, is almost impossible to say, simply because if you are happy in your world and you live in harmony with those around you, your world is a happy, harmonious, peaceful, and probably prosperous world. If your world focuses on the differences that people have with one another, and you are constantly allowing yourself to be pulled into disharmony by those who are around you or by the situations that are happening in the world, then you will experience disharmony. Do you understand? It is really a personal thing. And if so that you can live in harmony and peace, even though around you the world is devolving into disharmony and disunity, you will still have it in your life. You will have created that for yourself. And you will see it going on. Perhaps you will experience sadness that other people are living in this way. But it is up to each individual to create their own harmonious, happy, peaceful world. And as each one does it, so the pool of happiness, peacefulness, harmony will grow. And more people will embrace the attitudes that are necessary to keep it going and make it grow. So it is, as I have started the lecture, about change, changing attitudes, changing perceptions within yourself so that you experience a world that is happy, harmonious, peaceful, and prosperous. You can do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think that will be my last question for this evening. It has been my pleasure to be with you in this evening. I hope that you have heard some things which are helpful to yourself, to help you to move on into your life and create the worlds that we were just speaking of, the worlds that are filled with peace and harmony. And as a result, happiness and prosperity. And so that is my wish for you all tonight, that if your world is not happy and harmonious and peaceful, that you think about your perceptions and your attitudes and what you might be able to change in order to create such a world for yourself, for it is within your ability to do so. And I give you all my blessings. Good night.
Thank you,
Good
Ronkar.
night. Thank you very much, Ronkar.
I'm back.
Yay.
Okay. Is there anything else? But I'm here. No, nobody ever has a question for me. But that's okay. I love you all. Remember,
You
good
too.
night.